Y'all, solo van life is hard. And honestly, it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I am a very introverted person, so I didn't think spending extended periods of time by myself would be a problem. However, I have come to realize that too much time alone, I can't handle it. And I kind of wanted to talk about that today. Now, before I get into all of that, I am actually heading back out on the road very soon. And there's some things that I need to get taken care of on my van before that trip. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I'm embarrassed to say it, but I still have Christmas lights up on the top of my van. So I need to get those taken care of. It's been freezing here in Oklahoma, so I went in and drained my water system so that I don't have any problems later. And I need to get that set back up. I got some new filters for it, so I need to get those installed. I've taken everything out of my van and washed everything really good, so I need to get everything put back in. So today is going to be a very busy day for me. Okay, so I have my Christmas lights down finally. What I did to run the cords, instead of running them through my back doors back here and closing the doors on the cords, I went in and took the wire mesh out from the underside of my Max Air fan. I ran the cords through that and then down through the fan itself so that I could plug it in inside my van. So now I just need to get the fan put back together and get the wire mesh put back on the underside of it. I was a little worried about that water pump because if you let it dry out, it can cause problems, but I hooked everything up, got the filters replaced, and everything seems to be working just fine, so I'm happy with it. Okay, so I have my van put back together and I've got everything packed up and ready for my trip. So now I think it's time to sit down and have a chat. And before I get into this, I do want to mention, I don't know if you could tell or not, but I got a new mic for my camera and I'm still new to it and trying to play around with it. So if the audio is off on this video, that's why. I don't know if I'll use this mic on my next trip or not. I just want to play around with it a little bit and see if I can get the mic to sound good. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So the last time that you all saw me, I was in the mountains of Colorado and in a very beautiful area. I spent about a month there around the Breckenridge area, and it was absolutely beautiful. The hikes that I did were amazing. I saw some really cool animals. I woke up one morning and can't remember if I put this in a video or not, but I woke up one morning and looked out my window and there was a moose like 5 feet from my van, and he was just staring at me. So after spending about a month in Colorado, my parents called me and said that they were going to be making their way up to South Dakota, and they asked if I wanted to meet them up there. So I was pretty much done with Colorado at that point, so I told them, yes, I'll go ahead and drive up there. It was only about a 6-7 hour drive, so not too far at all. So I drove up to South Dakota, and I spent, I think it was about a week in South Dakota. My parents and I, we went to Mount Rushmore and Devil's Tower, which was pretty cool. And then after I left South Dakota, I made my way further west into Utah. And I spent about a month around the Salt Lake City area. And that is where things kind of started to take a turn. Like I mentioned earlier, I am a very introverted person, and I've mentioned that several times on my videos. So I never would have dreamed that being alone for an extended period of time would be a problem for me. But it was. The month in Colorado was fine. Everything was great. In Utah, not so much. I did step outside of my comfort zone and meet a few new people, but for the majority of the time, I was by myself, and it got very lonely. So much so that I couldn't even film. I just wasn't feeling it. So after spending about a month in Utah, I decided to come back to Oklahoma, and I've been in Oklahoma ever since. I decided just to stay here through the holidays and through the beginning of the year and try to figure out what it is that I want to do. And I can honestly say that full-time van life is probably not going to be for me. And that was my goal, was to do full-time van life ever since I bought my van. So coming to that conclusion was a little hard for me. However, I think it's what's best for me, especially being alone. If I had somebody with me that could travel full-time, it may have been a little bit different. However, with it being just me, I don't see it happening. And honestly, I'm glad that the experience that I had in Colorado and then in Utah, I'm glad that that happened, because that helped me decide. If I didn't have that experience, it would have been a lot harder for me to come to this conclusion that full-time van life probably isn't happening. I was talking with a friend of mine a while back, and him and his wife do van life as well. And they've been traveling around, and he was telling me how much he's missing home, and that instead of doing full-time van life of traveling around all the time, he wants to do more intentional traveling. And that is exactly what I want to do. Instead of just driving around and being in the van full-time, doing more intentional traveling, I think will be a lot better for me and will help me from getting burned out on it so easily. So even though, as of right now, full-time van life is probably not going to happen, traveling is still going to be a big part of my life. I enjoy it way too much to give it up. There's so many places out there that I want to see in the US and internationally. Last year, I spent the winter in Baja, which was amazing. And then I went to Baja and then spent 2 months and then came back home. I think approaching travel in that way is going to be what's best for me. So I know that this video is probably not as long as my past videos have been, and I apologize about that. And one thing I do want to say real quick is Those of you who are still on my channel, thank you so much for your patience. 2024 did not go how I thought it was going to. So thank you all so much for your patience. I really appreciate it. Full-time solo van life may not be for me. However, I may not have to travel alone very much anymore. And I'm going to be talking about that more in my next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.